I can't wait to show you how to make this super soft sourdough sandwich bread. I like to call it a Wonder Bread Copycat recipe because it is super soft and fluffy, just like the bread from the store. I'm gonna show you how to make this by hand. You do not need a stand mixer to do it, and you're also not gonna break your arms. We are letting a little bit of handling and time come together to bring us a really strong dough, just like you can get in a stand mixer, but without the equipment. So without further ado, let's get to it. We begin the night before making our stiff sweet starter. To make this, you need 30 grams of a healthy sourdough starter, 30 grams of honey or sugar. I'm actually starting to prefer sugar a little bit, but either is fine. 60 grams of water and 120 grams of bread flour. We're going to mix that up. This Tavolo spatula thing is amazing. I have 3 of them now because I love them so much for mixing up my starter. You want to kind of incorporate the ingredients and then take that ball out and knead it and kind of squish everything together so you don't have any dry flour bits hanging out in there. Put it back in, scrape down the sides. Love that spatula. There were a couple bits at the bottom that didn't get incorporated, so I'm just bringing it right back out. Stick it back in there and let that ferment overnight on the counter. In the morning, we're going to make our tangzhong, 175 grams of whole milk. You can substitute any nut milk or even water here. 35 grams of bread flour, and then we're going to microwave this in 30-second increments until we have a thick gel-like paste that is about 150 degrees Fahrenheit. Not quite there yet in this clip. Technically 140 degrees is fine, but I prefer going to 150. Mix it real well, make sure there's no flour bits. Somehow it was still a little low, so I did another 30-second increment, mixing it together real well, double checking. Finally, we are there. To cool this down, you can stick it in the fridge for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you can add it to your dough. To make the dough, we need 195 grams of cool water, 40 grams of sugar. You could also use honey if you prefer. 45 grams of avocado oil. You can use any neutral oil here. A lot of recipe testers loved olive oil. And then all of our stiff sweet starter that is peaked from the night before. I thought about mixing in a certain order, but it turns out it really didn't matter. Honestly, just dump everything in a bowl. The stiff sweet starter is not going to break down very well like this. So move on with 515 grams of a high protein bread flour, King Arthur, Central Milling High Mountain Flour, Ballerina Farms. Any of those are my favorites, but any high protein flour, and 12 grams of salt. At this point, I was still waiting for my tangzhong to cool down enough. I like it to be under 100 degrees Fahrenheit. The cooler, the better, really. So I had to let it rest in the fridge for a little bit longer before adding it. If it's too hot, it could kill the yeast and the bacteria in your starter, and we don't want that. Now, using a Danish dough whisk, I'm going to mix these together. I was testing out this kind of like one-piece stainless steel dough whisk, and I do not like it. The handle is really uncomfortable. I really prefer my Broad & Taylor Danish dough whisk for what it's worth. But we're going to knead and just kind of squeeze all of those ingredients together. Once it's incorporated, I like to bring it out onto the counter and do a lot of kneading like this. In reality, this was only about 2 to 3 minutes of hand kneading. Of course, in a stand mixer, you can kind of set it and forget it, but by hand, it's really not a big deal. Just a few minutes. My arms were not sore or tired or anything like that. You can kind of slap it down. Slap and folds are helpful too to really quickly get things incorporated. Just do a mix of it all. Kneading, slap and folds, whatever you need to do, and then cover it for 30 to 60 minutes or so, and then we'll come back and strengthen it some more. Here we are coming back, starting off with stretch and folds. You can already see how this dough is smoothing out. It's basically got a window pane just from the relaxing. But we're going to do those stretch and folds, and then I moved on to a little bit more kneading. This can be helpful not only to strengthen the dough, but it's also a good way to make sure that all of those ingredients are fully combined. Sometimes there can be dry bits of flour in there that just for whatever reason didn't get combined. So working it again here is useful. Cover it up, let it rest for 30 minutes, and then we'll come back for some more stretch and folds. At this point, we don't have to like stand here for 2 or 3 minutes. We're just doing stretch and folds around the bowl. You can wet your hands if things are sticky. I didn't really need to. I don't know why I did actually. I did a couple more slap and folds just to get a smooth surface. I'm a little, not like OCD, but I just like having a smooth surface when I put dough back in the bowl. And doing slap and folds like this gets a really nice smooth surface that you see here. Then you cover it up, and guess what? You're gonna come back one more time after 30 minutes and just do a few more stretch and folds. You can see here we've got a lovely window pane. Just that little bit of intermittent hand mixing in combination with some rest really strengthens the dough. It's the same texture and strength that you can get from a stand mixer, but we just have to incorporate some rest periods between. This is good to go. We're gonna finish the bulk fermentation in a nice warm spot. I put it in my proofing box for about 3 hours, and here we are. It's risen just a little bit. We've got teeny tiny bubbles all around. That's all we want to see. It's nice and aerated. It hasn't risen a ton, and we don't want it to rise a ton because we need to save that rising power for the second rise. Okay, I put this on my surface. I forgot to flour it. A little bit of flour is going to help make sure it doesn't stick when you go to roll it up. But go ahead and use a rolling pin. I'm just getting more flour there on the bottom. Use your rolling pin to roll it pretty thin. We're trying to get rid of those bubbles so that when you do bake it and go to slice it, there's not big holes in there. This was a pretty bubbly dough. I don't know, normally the doughs don't have quite that much bubbles, but each time's a little different, you know? Just rolling it up, tucking in the edges as I go to prevent a seam. If you don't tuck in the edges, just pinch that seam closed when you finish rolling it up. No big deal. Either way is just fine. Just further reinforcing that seam pinch. And I like to use a toothpick to kind of pop any bubbles that appear on the surface. Those bubbles will get bigger as it does its second rise, and then they can potentially burn in the oven. That's why I'm popping those ones right there on the surface. Cover it up, put it back in a warm spot until the dough has risen to the height of the pan. We had date night, so I actually stuck this in the fridge when it was finished and waited until the next morning to bake it. No problem. It looks basically the same. It's just cool, but that's totally fine. I'm putting it in my 350 degrees Fahrenheit preheated oven. Baked it for 40 minutes, and I checked the temperature. It was a little bit under, so I let it go for another 4 or 5 minutes, and we were good to go. Buttering the crust here, I like just using a stick of butter and gliding it on the top. It's a lot faster and easier than like actually melting butter and brushing it on. But yeah, that makes the top very smooth and soft. Super smooth, lovely. Here's what it looked like out of the pan. I'm gonna let it cool for a little bit before I slice it, which is the hardest part. But here's a look at the crumb. It's a little more, not that it's a wild crumb, but it's not quite as uniform as it is when I use my stand mixer, but honestly not that different at all. We loved this. It's super soft. This dough is just incredible. I love working with it. We love the way it tastes. We love how soft it is, everything about it. This is a total household staple for us. I hope you love it.